Good morning guys, and welcome to another episode of Video Game News, the show bringing you the latest and the freshest from the world of video gaming. But today, rather than looking at what's new in the world, we're going to be looking at a summary of the E3 EA conference that just dropped yesterday evening. EA had, as they often have, the chance to open the E3 this year, and while watching the presentation, I really could not shake the feeling that it's not a very impressive opening. In fact, for a solid part of it, the audience, as I was following the Twitch chat, seemed rather bored, and what they were releasing and announcing just did not seem that exciting, and also felt like we already knew about most of it beforehand. But anyways, without judging anymore, let's go through the list because we still have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Now, they started out with the most deepest and immersive experience yet of a Battlefield 5. They're still keeping that thing up. They showed us a little bit more of gameplay, a little bit of destruction, which is brutal once again. They showed a tank just driving straight through a house. And they also showed a new feature, which the game is gonna have, where you can hook defensive weapons behind vehicles and kind of tow or drag them around the battlefields to perhaps a more advantageous positions. They did once again reinforce that the game is going to have no loot boxes. Then they showed a cinematic trailer which looked pretty cool but wasn't anything crazy impressive in my opinion. It was definitely shorter than the original release trailer. And then they talked about the war stories, which are going to be the way they handle single player, and they didn't show any of them, but today during the Xbox conference they will showcase one of them, and if I'm not mistaken it's going to be the one from Norway. Finally, to top this off, they did drop a bomb when announcing that Battlefield 5 will have a Battle Royale mode, because of course it will.
It's Royale.
And the audience's reaction to this was not exactly too welcoming. However, I am personally pretty okay with this because it's not that they're dropping any other content for the sake of Battle Royale. It feels really tacked on, and I'm not even sure if it's gonna be there at release. I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult to make, but since they're not dropping anything else and you are getting this for free, I wouldn't personally be too mad about it. And if you were gonna get the Battlefield anyways, good for you, you're getting an extra mode. Next, they talked about FIFA 2018 and 2019. Well, with the 2018 it was more about the tournaments, and with 2019 about some small hints of innovation. It wasn't really anything crazy, and honestly, in my opinion, there wasn't anything that you wouldn't expect from a new FIFA release. They showed a bunch of cinematics at the start, and apparently Hans Zimmer worked on the music for it, so that's pretty cool. Now, the only thing I did find kind of interesting is that they said that the game will be coming out for a free trial, so you will be able to get it on PC, on Xbox, and on PS4, download it and get the full experience. So, you know, if you like football or soccer related games, go for it, but it's not something that I personally found too interesting. Now, next up, they touched a bit on EA Play and of course on Origin, and then they talked about some sort of a premium access that you're going to be able to buy. It was not entirely clear to me the way they explained it, what the purpose of it was. It like gives you instant access to a whole bunch of games. I'm not sure if those games are then for free. And they called it a vault that you will have an access to, but they didn't really go too deep on it. All we do know is that you will have to pay extra money for it, and since it's Origin, it's most likely going to be subscription based, so you're probably going to be paying monthly, which, yeah, the audience also wasn't too happy about this one. Now, next up, this section was a bit weird because they got one of the developers from Respawn to talk about the next Star Wars game, but they didn't show anything. Like, they had zero stuff prepared. This guy was just sitting in the audience, and so they walked up to him with a microphone. And what he pretty much revealed was that we will be getting a new Star Wars game during the holidays of 2019 called Jedi: The Fallen Order. All he was able to tell us is that it takes place during the dark times where Jedi are being hunted. And he did say you are most likely not going to be playing a Jedi, though, you know, knowing them, you're probably going to switch to that side within half an hour of the gameplay. And finally, if you're wondering where this stands within the Star Wars universe, he said it takes place between episodes 3 and 4. Next up, they came back to Battlefront 2. They did this very small, like, wannabe apology for the loot boxes, right? It's a bit late for that, it seemed to me. And then they talked about new systems that are going to be introduced. They're going to be getting a new dogfighting mode where you just fight with freaking jets, I suppose, or like X-Wings. They're going to be improving on the squad system, so you can now get together with your teammates much easier and play in a game. And finally, they did describe another mode which really sounded like Conquest Large to me, but I personally haven't played Battlefront, and I'm not exactly sure, but there will be another mode coming that will probably be showcased a bit later. Finally, quoting the developer, they will be going deep into the Clone Wars with the releases of the next maps, which is supposed to be the largest level they have ever worked on, and they will be adding a few more characters such as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. So if you have Battlefront, hey, I guess this is an exciting time to be alive. Now next up, they finally showed something that was at least interesting, and that was Unravel 2. Now I don't know if you played the original Unravel because it wasn't like a huge AAA release back then. But what it essentially is, it's a 2.5D platformer that currently, in the second version, uses 2 players as co-op, but as far as I understood, can be played solo as well. Now the visuals looked really interesting as this combination of cartoony and realistic looking forests, and the puzzles and the platforming looked actually kind of fun. But what was really entertaining and really exciting to me was when, at the end of the presentation, they said that the game comes out today, which means yesterday actually.
But what's even more amazing is that we will make Unravel 2 available to everyone today. Yep, you heard that right. You'll be able to take these 2 Yarnies on their next big adventure starting today. The game is finished, it's out.
So the game was announced and released on the same day, which to me is pretty interesting, and I am really interested to see how that works out for them. Now next up, they brought up the EA Originals program, which, if you don't know, is this program where EA supports smaller indie developers. Last year we got the A Way Out, the co-op prison game from this program, and today we're getting what's called the Sea of Solitude. They didn't really have a whole lot to say or show here. It was mostly just talking about the story, and it's gonna be a very heavily story-driven game from what I understood. The graphics looked a bit Firewatch-like, as in very bright colors and cartoony-ish. And the story is going to be about this girl who's suffering from loneliness and other negative emotions, which pretty much turn her into a monster of some sort. And then you have to figure out why and how to combat this. I mean, as far as games go, it didn't look that interesting. But then again, they weren't able to show as much, and if it's really story driven, they obviously can't because they would spoil it. So I'm keeping an open mind on this, and we'll see when it comes out in early 2019. Now next up, they talked about NBA and Madden 19, which honestly, I'm just gonna quickly skim through both of these because neither of them are really interesting. For Madden, they brought up this dude who's apparently a professional player with like a belt or something. You know, the audience was clearly pretty bored at this point, and so I'm just gonna honestly skip these because they didn't show anything crazy. They showed a bunch of gameplay. The game is running on Frostbite, and that's about it. Now next came something that I think a lot of people were not happy about, and that's the new Command & Conquer game, which has now been reduced to a mobile tapping real-time strategy 1v1 type of style game. They're calling it Command & Conquer Rivals, and they brought 2 people on the stage to play it and showcase it, and it's, you know, what you would expect. You place down buildings and then you try to shoot rockets at your enemy's base sooner than they shoot rockets at your base. And the audience was pretty bored at this point, I can tell you that much. However, if you're interested in playing this and you're running an Android on your phone, then you're going to be able to get your hands on the pre-alpha as of today. So you can go into the market, you can search for it, and you can probably try it out. To me, this was probably the lowest point of the presentation. They spent way too much on this. They showcased them playing an entire match from start to finish, no skips. And this was like a 15-minute long segment where no one cared. Like seriously, no one. So I think everyone was hoping that they were going to step it up for the final thing of Anthem. Now with Anthem, we finally got a bit more showcase, but once again, it was only in very small bits. We never got a bigger chunk of gameplay or showing us like how a single mission would fully run. They showed a part of that, but luckily all the footage was in engine, or at least most of it, and it still looked beautiful, I can tell you that much. As far as the story goes, which they said wants to be a big focus on the game, it is about some resistance staying behind the big wall, and which is protecting them from their rivals as well as from the outside world, which reminded me of Attack on Titan a little bit. And what they said is that they want this game to be co-op, but the focus is very much on the story itself. And so the co-op is not and should not be a necessity for you to play. So yes, you can experience this game on your own through the stories, or you can play it with your friends, up to 4 people. Then they went on the segment to show a bunch of concept art, which was okay, I didn't really care too much about that. Then they talked about the javelin suits that you're going to be able to pilot. Now there's going to be 4 of them, which to me was a little bit disappointing because I kind of hoped they were going to have more. I know at this point people are really starting to spam Warframe into the chat, and like, yeah, in Warframe you have like, what, over 30 different Warframes that you can choose from. However, nevertheless, you're gonna have these 4 suits, which all have very different powers as far as it was explained. They showed a bit of gameplay with the big Colossus, and then they showed a bit of gameplay with one of the smaller ones. I don't remember the name. But you are going to be able to customize these, and you are going to be able to buy cosmetics for them. However, they were very clear when they said that it's going to contain no loot boxes and it's going to contain no paid progression. So hey, I guess that's a plus at least. Now finally, they showed a bit of the gameplay. Like I already said, it looked pretty good. The stream did not do the graphics any favors. I'm thinking a lot of people are thinking that it is downgraded since the last time they showed it. But to me, that could have very easily just been the stream. I mean, honestly, the game didn't look bad at all until they got to some of the darker areas where the lack of light really showed. But overall, you know, Frostbite is a fantastic engine, so the game looked really nice. The gameplay looked fairly spammy, and I wasn't a huge fan of how the UI looked, but that could probably just me, and I'm sure that it's most likely not the final version that's going to be implemented yet. The release date for Anthem is February 22nd, 2019, and that was essentially the conclusion for the EA presentation. And I think at this point you can understand why I said it was a fairly weak opening. I mean, out of all the games that they released, for most of them we either knew that they were coming, or we've seen them on previous E3, or they're indie games. In fact, I think that literally describes every single one of their announcements. Maybe besides, you know, the mobile Command & Conquer, which actually infuriated more people off than made people happy. But nevertheless, that was it for EA. Next up is Microsoft in about 10 hours at the time of making this video. So let's see if they can pull it together. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All of those would be very much appreciated. I want to wish you all a bit of a rest off today. I want to see you all in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.